everybody, welcome this week to Adventures in Art. And this week we are going to be painting a firefly with a dragonfly painting. So this is what it's going to look like when you're done. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to need our blue and our purple. And my colors might be slightly different than yours, but that's okay. So we have our blue and our purple, and you're going to want to take some of each and put it on a paper plate. I'm going to take a scoop of blue, and then a scoop of the purple. Okay, I think I told you to draw a line down it. So if I did, go ahead and take a pencil and a ruler and make a line about 4 inches or so from the bottom, like it about there. Mine's not straight, but that's okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of blue and a little bit of purple on my brush, and for the top part I'm just going to kind of paint all over in little brush strokes, nothing a certain direction, just kind of go, all directions. And you're just going to keep painting it nice and thin. Wait till you get rid of all your big lumps of paint before you put more paint on your brush. It's especially a little rougher on the edges. Sometimes the edges don't get covered very well. So I'll just kind of go around like this with the edges. And then I'll go back and finish off the rest of it. So go up to the line. If you go past the line a little bit, it's fine. It doesn't matter. But just paint it kind of real quick, whatever direction, doesn't matter, like I said. And then when you have the whole thing covered, and I'm doing mine kind of quick just to show you, so mine's not going to be all completely covered, but when you're done with the top part and it's like that, it's like all different directions, what you want to do with the bottom part underneath the line is you want to take the same 2 colors, but you want to paint it side to side, because this part is the water and this part is the sky. So we want the water to be nice and straight. You might want to even add a little bit more blue in the bottom part where it's the water. So just go back and forth straight across to do the water. Now what I did is I have a finished one, because after you're done with those 2 steps, you want it to dry all the way. Okay, so I'm going to move mine aside, and now I have one that I did earlier that is completely dry, so I can keep going on without you guys having to wait. Okay, so what we're going to do now, so you go ahead, finish yours, pause, and come back when you're done. So whenever you're done, just unpause it and continue on. So now I'm just going to go on like we've already done that. So the next part is going to be to draw the dragonfly and the flower. I'm going to move this over so you can see the dragonfly and the flower. Okay, at least a little bit better. Let me move the plate while I'm drawing it. So the flower is going to be just below the water level, so don't go above where your line is. And I tell you, it shows up a lot different, the color, in person than it does on the camera, because it just does not look the same color whatsoever. So yours will look different in person, I'm sure, too. So with the flower, it's a lotus flower, I'm going to do this middle part first. So I'm going to start up here and I'm going to come down and go up like that. And then I'm going to do this one off to the side. And then the next one off to the side. And then there's going to be one petal up in the back sticking out. And then this one. The ones over here, because they're going off the edge, so you don't really have the end of it, which is fine. All right, so there's my lotus flower. You can also draw in your lily pad if you want as well. Some of it, if you think you could just paint it fine without drawing it in, that's okay too. Draw my lily pad. Mine's a little smaller this time, but it's fine. And now I'm going to start with his tail first. And now his middle section of his body. And then a little round head. When we're done with the chalk too, you might want to hang on to it because you might want to try using it on another painting coming up in the upcoming weeks too. So I know I only gave everybody a little piece, but try to hang on to it if you can. Okay, to make the wings, they're just long, skinny. And just because we're drawing them on now doesn't mean you can't go back and, like that one got real wide. You can go back and you can adjust it when you're painting it. So with the chalk, we did it with the chalk because if you take chalk and you need to erase it because you made a mistake, like this one got real big, so I'm going to go ahead and erase it. Water and a paintbrush will just erase it, and then just go back and wipe off the water. So if you made a mistake and you have to redo it, just go ahead and erase it with the paintbrush and water and redraw it. You have to use chalkboard chalk though, not sidewalk chalk. Sidewalk chalk has got something in there that's more gritty because it has to go on the sidewalk, and you might damage the painting doing it with the sidewalk chalk, so you don't want to do that. Okay, I'm not going to draw my sun, my moon on. I'm not going to draw that on because that's just a circle. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take white paint, because this paint for the flower will not show up good against the dark background unless we paint it white first. So go ahead and paint this whole flower in with white paint. I'm just going to do it petal at a time. I should have grabbed a bigger brush too. I didn't grab enough brushes. I grabbed a little bitty brush, a big brush, and then this one. Should have brought more over here. So go ahead and just give it a coating of white. Doesn't have to be neat looking because we're going to paint on top of it anyway. But the pink will show up better if we paint the white first. I was going to do this ahead of time too, so you didn't have to wait for me to do this, but I didn't. Now, if you don't like where your lines are, and as you're painting, you can just change them if you want. So if you decided one of them was too big, you can just kind of go and adjust it with your paintbrush, and don't worry about the chalk on there. Remember, any chalk that's showing at the end, wait for your painting to be completely dry, and then you want to go back with a wet paintbrush that's clean. Make sure you don't have any paint on it, and just wipe away all of the chalk marks. But make sure your painting is completely dry. You may even want to wait till the next day to do it. Otherwise, you'll smear your paint. And sometimes your paint feels like it's dry and looks like it's dry, but deep down, it isn't. So see how I'm even sticking with each petal as I'm painting it with just the white, just because it's kind of still keeping the distinct shape of it, so I know where all the petals are. And it's perfectly fine to paint over the chalk lines. Okay, good enough. So now I'm going to take, I'm going to do this, the moon. I keep wanting to call it the sun, but it's nighttime. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint the moon, which I should have grabbed a bigger brush because this one is way too tiny for this, but the other one's way too giant. So that's okay. So just go ahead and paint around circle. Now we're going to have the same problem with the background with this yellow as we are with the flower. So what I'm going to do is, I just painted that on to see where I was going to put it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take white paint. You don't need a lot. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow paint. And I'm going to mix it together. So it's going to be the yellow with the white. And see, it covers up the background color a little bit better that way. When you paint this moon, make sure you keep it circular around the outer edge until you get more towards the middle, because it looks better that way if you follow the circle. Now after you paint the solid part, you want to go back with a little bit more, and you want to paint kind of little round-ish lines going around it, because you want to look like it's the light's coming out from it. So it's shining in the moonlight while the moon is shining in the night. So you just want to make some little lines that are a little curved. Just kind of like that. Don't make them real long. Just kind of like that. Okay? Now, while I have got the yellow also, move my lids out of the way, I am also going to paint the body of the dragonfly. So I'm going to start with the head. And the same thing too, if you decided that your lines aren't quite right, you can go ahead and paint it a little bit different. Like this side got more curvy, that one's more straight. And same thing, follow the shape that you're painting. So you want to paint up and down the length of the body. And then for the head, you wanted it to be rounded like his head is. Just like that. All right. Now what we're going to do is turn this around. And this one's going to get a little bit messier, so let me fix this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take, let's see, I'm going to take this finger, put a little bit of the yellow paint on it, and I'm going to touch it just a tiny bit. You don't want very much, and you want to touch it to your painting and twist it. So do it again. Oops, that one came out very, very wrong. So just put it down lightly and twist it. Some are going to be darker, like that one's very light, that's fine. I'm not doing it well. My fingers are too big for this. You guys have smaller fingers, that'll work better. So you're just kind of doing that in a few places. Now see, this one looks too small, so I gotta make it bigger. Okay, so just like that, and then go ahead and wipe your finger off. And just so you know, baby wipes work better to remove paint from your hands than soap and water do. Okay, so those are going to be the fireflies. So you can leave them as they are, or what you can do is you can take just a little bit of straight yellow and put it right in the middle, which you might not even be able to see it. That one you do, because you want to make it's like the other part is what's radiating from the main part of his tail. So you don't have to do it if you don't want to, because I did it on my first one and I thought it was fine. All right, so the next step, and I might not be going in the same order as your paper that I gave you, but that's fine. Sometimes it doesn't matter which order you go in. For the flower, you had to go in the right order though, because you had to get that white down. And see, I'm doing this other stuff because I'm trying to get this white to dry. So that's fine. We're going to go ahead and do the wings on him now. Now the wings, we want it to be more transparent because the dragonfly wings aren't real solid anyway. So same thing, follow the length of the wing, and then at the end, kind of come around to make it curved. But we don't really want them real dark white. You want them a little transparent so you can see the background through it a little bit. That's fine. Sometimes we want to, sometimes we don't want to, but this is one of the times we want to. Now I felt his wing was too big from where I drew with the chalk, so I made it a little smaller. So then when I'm done, I will definitely make those. Since I made it smaller, I'll erase that line. Oops, this one kind of got away from me. I do better usually turning my canvas around. I didn't do it this time, so I could reach it better. Okay, so one more. This one still, I don't like the shape of it, so I'm going to ignore what I drew the first time. Kind of do my own thing. Okay, so you got your wings. Now we need, and I have yellow all over my arm because I put it in the firefly. Okay, so now we're going to have to take some green paint with a little bit. You can just use, your green is going to be a different color. I don't have that green at home, so my green is kind of bright. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make it a little darker looking. So I'm going to take just a little bit of this purple and make it a darker, a little bit deeper of a color of a green. Which would be a little bit more like the color that you guys got. Okay, so go ahead and paint your lily pad. Now this is going to need some white too. I did think I told you to put some white in it. So let me get some white. And when I put the white in it, I'm not going to really mix it real well. Sometimes it looks better if when your colors are, your paint colors that you're mixing aren't mixed real well, because it looks good with some streaks in it. So I'm not going to mix this real well because kind of we want some streaks in it. So just kind of like that, and then try to fill up the middle a little bit. Yeah, I like that streak, but I need a little bit more streak. Here we go. I added a little bit more white. Okay. Now we have over here in this corner, there's a little bit of weed sticking out with some cattails on them. So what I did is actually I'm going to switch brushes. I have a real skinny brush for this. Oh, I keep getting full of green paint. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little bit of green and I'm going to make some lines coming out, which will be the cattails. You can have as many cattails as you want. I think the other one I did 3. I like odd amounts, so I'm going to stick with 3. And I'm also going to make a few other lines. It'd just be pieces of long grass growing up in there too. All right. Now we don't have brown, and cattails are brown. So what we are going to do is red and green make brown. We don't have red, but we have pink. So we're going to take a little bit of pink. We're going to take a little bit of pink, and we're going to take a little bit of green, and we're going to mix those together and try to come up with a brown. Might not be the prettiest brown ever, but it doesn't really matter because it's just going to be the cattails on here anyway. So go ahead and paint just some little ovals, which are the cattails. Now I noticed that this doesn't show up real well on camera. My overhead lighting is not, it's making too much reflection. So it's kind of hard to see, but hopefully you'll see it that I have some cattails on there, okay? You'll see them better in person on yours. And then what you want to do too is either take a little bit of white or a little bit of the yellow, and you want to make some little highlight lines on it. So just take a little bit, and then, because it's supposed to be like the moon is shining down on it. Okay. You also want to take, which we're going to finish the other ones later, but you also want to take a little bit and you want it to make a little bit of like movement in the water. So you just kind of make a little partial little lines around it. Just so it shows up better. And I had dripped earlier, which now I have to wipe it up. Okay. So since you have the brown also, if you need to make it a little darker, because it is a little lighter, take a little bit of the blue and mix it in too. And that'll even darken it up. And now I'm going to take that and I am going to paint the eyes on the little dragonfly. Okay, just like that. And you know what I forgot to paint on him? Forgot his antennas. So I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow that's mixed with the white and make him some antennas. All right, that's much better. Now, since we've got the yellow and the white anyway, and I've got the skinny brush out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some lines in the water. Just kind of make them light. Don't make them real dark. But it's just supposed to be like the water, the movement of the water. You can make them either with the light yellow, or you could just make them strictly white. Whichever one you prefer, because the yellow is kind of like you're reflecting from the moon down, so that's why it's picking up the light. But you need to take some white and make some lines around your dragonfly to mimic the movement of him flying. So you just want to make some lines around his wings to, you know, show him that he's kind of in motion by doing that. It'll look better when you erase the chalk lines. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do now is going to be that flower. That's the trickiest, which is kind of why this time I saved it for the end. I wish I had my bigger brush, but I don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some white on my plate. This pink is very transparent, and you need the white so you can see the flower better. But that's why we also put the layer of white down too, to extra help it. So let me put a little pink down. And remember, any of the paint that you have left over when you're done painting, you could always hang on to it and use it on something for, you know, something of your own that you're painting, or you could use it as a substitution of another color in one of my paintings down the road. So it's always good if you have enough left to go ahead and hang on to it. So go ahead and mix some pink and white together, very loosely though, because you want it to be very streaky with both colors. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with that big one in the middle again, and see how much different it looks when you paint it. And you want to stick with the shape of it too, so you want to go up and down with your stroke marks. And you have pink and white streaks in there. That is a good thing. Gives your flower more character, more natural looking, because your flowers aren't all solid. Okay. Now everybody's are going to come out different. Believe me, everybody's aren't going to be the same. The trick is when you do the petal next to it, next to one another, you have to change the color a little bit. So like this one is going to run here, and I'm going to put a little bit, dip my brush into straight pink as I'm doing it, because I want it slightly different color, so you could tell where one petal stops and the next petal is. But you don't have to necessarily do the whole petal that way, because this one's going to be there. You can make it darker on this side, and you can have it whiter on this side. Same thing like with this one. You can do a darker pink on that side, and then you can go lighter pink on this side. So then for this one, I'm going to keep it lighter because this one's a little bit pinkier. And right here is only going to be the tricky part. So when I'm done filling it, I think I'm going to go back and add some darker color right there. So you always want to just vary the color next to one petal to the next, so you can actually see the different petals. So now that I did that, I'm going to kind of come through with this a little bit. And then for this back one, I'm actually going to do the darkest because it's the furthest away, so it would be the darkest petal. Okay, and I kind of skipped over that other, I didn't go back to the other side yet, but I'm going to do it this way instead. I'm going to start with the bigger one, and then I'm going to go to the next one, which I'm going to stick with just the lighter color. Now what you can also do is with this middle one, which is what I did, is you can kind of add afterward. You can go back and you can add more color to it, just to add more character to it. See how it's darker on one side and lighter on the other? This I had to smooth out. It was too noticeable, that darker area. So just kind of, play around with them. You just want the different colors in the petals so they all show up. And see, this one I made much darker, and that's fine. Actually, I used a different color pink because that's what I had at the time. So it's up to you on what colors you want it. Where you want the dark areas, where you want the light areas. But you want to have a little of both just because it adds more character to it. All right. And I think that is it. Now, you also could, which I did not do because I don't have a really good steady hand to do it, you could take a really, really, really fine marker and you can make little lines in the wings like their wings have. But I don't have a good steady hand to do it, so I chose not to do it, which is fine. You don't have to do it. All right. Oh, I forgot to make some highlight lines on him. Pink off of here, which it might not show up too much, but you might want to take a little bit of white and run it on the side of his body like that, so little highlights are on the Dragonfly too. All right, so that is it, our finished painting for our first week of Adventures in Art. So I will see you next week. Next week we are going to be doing angelfish. All right, so I will see you then. Bye.